So make sure your spindles don't roll off your surface. They can very easily roll off, and you don't want to drop your spindles, okay? Ask me how I know. We got a bumper crop of dandelions. Okay, we're getting some flowers. Good. Crabapple tree is almost ready to pop. She just loves spring. Happy May Day, everyone. Hello friends, welcome to my channel about creating and using hand spun yarn. My name is Lisa and I can be found on social media as The Soulful Spinner. I'm most active on Instagram, but I do have a Ravelry page and a Ravelry group, Soulful Spinning, if you're interested in popping over there and saying hello. So today is a beautiful May 1st, 2020 in Illinois. We have had several days of drenching rain, and today is a beautiful sunny day. The flowering trees are blooming, and it's just a wonderful day to be alive. I hope wherever you are, you're having a good day and you're well. Today is a special episode. I put out the question in my last video about drop spindling, and I was curious to see if anybody was interested in drop spindling. And I got several people that said yes, they would be interested in a video about drop spindling. So that's what this video is going to be about today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a variety of spindles in my collection, different weights from very lightweight to heavy and what they're good for. I'm going to talk about beginner fibers for a beginner drop spindler. And then I'm going to go into the actual process of spinning, starting the leader and spinning your singles and going from park and draft to continuous spinning. And then finally I'm going to show you how to ply with your spindles. So I hope you find this video useful. I am going to put timestamps in the description box so that you can just jump to that portion of the video that you're interested in. All right, so let's get started. So as you can see, I have quite a lot of drop spindles. Embarrassingly, quite a number of them. Let's see if that's better. Now, I did not get all of these at once. I collected them over several years. But what I'm gonna do is go through a couple of my favorite makers here, and then I will jump into the spinning. All right, so I'm gonna start out with the spindles that I first bought, and these three spindles here are Kundert spindles. Stephen Kundert is an American maker, and he makes these spindles that are they're all about 1 ounce. He's not making any spindles at the moment, but you may be able to find one in destash or through the Woolery or one of the online fiber shops. So this is my Kundert spindles. These are all about 1 ounce, and they're really good for beginners. I would recommend a spindle between 1 and 1.5 ounces as a beginner. So these are my Kundert spindles. So after the Kundert spindles, I bought a Golding spindle. This is called a Golding spindle. Let's try to find something to focus on here. Now Golding makes really, really fancy spindles, like really super expensive and very ornate and decorative spindles. I didn't really want one of those. First of all, the price was a little bit prohibitive, and also I didn't want to be worried about it breaking. So this one's made out of laburnum, and what's nice about the Golding spindles is they have this brass ring which makes the spindle rim weighted, which makes the spindle spin a really long time, which is really good for beginners. So this one was really helpful when I was learning how to spin. They do tend to be on the heavier side because this brass adds quite a bit of weight to the spindle. So that's a Golding spindle. That's my one and only one Golding. So these are all my Elizabeth Daily spindles right here. You can see I think I have more of her spindles than anybody else. If you're interested in a beginner spinner, I would recommend her apprentice spindle, which is this one here. It's got a nice long shaft, it's not too heavy, and it's got a very sturdy hook, and this would be a great one for a beginner. The other one that she has that's very affordable is this one. This one's called the Bare Bonesy, and you can get it for about $15. And what's nice about this is it's nice and lightweight. So if you want to spin some finer fibers and you don't want to invest in too expensive of a spindle, I recommend both of these as starters. Quite a bit different size here. So she has these spindles here. She makes them out of all different beautiful woods. These are Molen spindles, I think. I think they're based on a Scandinavian design. And both of these spindles are a little bit heavier. I have some fiber here. I just wanted to show you that this spindle was really good for spinning thicker singles. Let me show you a couple more of hers. These little guys here are similar to those larger spindles. They're this dome style. So again, I think this is part of her Scandinavian line of spindles. And these are very nice and lightweight, and they spin very, very fast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the shape of the whorl and how they spin. If you have a spindle that has most of the weight around the rim, you're going to get a longer, more sustained spin. And that's why, especially if you're a beginner spindler, you would want to get a spindle which has a, they call this rim weighted, so it's got a nice, long, sustained spin. Abby Frankenmont, in her book, Respect the Spindle, goes through all the mechanics and physics of the different spindle shapes. I'm not going to get into that here, but I highly recommend getting a copy of her book if you're interested in spindle spinning. So again, if you have a rim-weighted spindle, so like this is a Golding spindle, or I'm looking for my, this is a Bosworth spindle. And I think the reason that these are so popular is because of the rim-weighted nature of these, because they just spin a really long time. It makes it a lot easier to spin when you have a rim-weighted spindle. Now that being said, if you want to spin very fast and very fine, you sometimes want more of the weight centered, okay, around the shaft. And what you're going to get with this type of spindle is a much faster spin, but not as long a spin. Now, the weights of the spindle will determine the thickness of your single. So the lighter the spindle, the faster it's going to spin. So here I have one of Greensleeve spindles, and this one is very, very lightweight, and I was spinning some Tussa Silk singles on this one. You wouldn't be able to spin a real thick yarn on a very lightweight spindle. So generally speaking, the lighter the spindle, the thinner your singles are going to be. That's not to say that you can't get thin singles on a bigger spindle, but it just makes it a little harder. Now, this one is a Bosworth spindle, and this is one of his maxis. So if you compare it with this one, you can see that it's quite a bit larger. So this is one that you would be appropriate for thicker singles. It's got a nice deep notch here, and it's also very good for plying. So I like heavier spindles with a longer shaft for plying my yarn, and I like smaller, lightweight spindles, about an ounce, to do my singles. Here's another one of the lighter weight spindles. So I'll leave a link for Elizabeth's shop in the description box. She has a very active presence on Facebook, so where she'll post her spindles, and she will even do a special order for you. She's just really lovely to work with. Highly recommend her spindles. As you can see, I'm quite the fan here. Another one of my favorite makers is True Creations spindles. I have 4 of them here. The gentleman that makes these spindles has been a wood turner for many, many years, and it shows in his spindles. What I like about these spindles is the shaft. The shaft is very thin, and the whorl is perfectly balanced, and so you get a beautiful spin on this. This is one of his larger spindles that I like to use for plying. So here's another one that's a little bit larger. And these are very good for plying, because when you ply yarn, you want to make sure you have a long sustained spin. So the heavier the spindle, the more oomph it's going to have to continue to spin and get the twist that you want in your yarn when you ply. Okay. Here are a couple of his other lighter weight spindles, and what's great about these too is he has the weight right on the. He has the weight right on here. This is bloodwood. It's about 1.2 ounces, and then this is sapele, and this is 0.7. So a spindle that's under an ounce, again, it's going to be good for very fine singles and also finer fibers like silk. So sticking with American makers here, this is my Texas Jeans collection of spindles. This gentleman lives in Texas, and he makes beautiful drop spindles. He also makes beautiful support spindles as well. What's great about these spindles is not only their beauty, but the hook is really, really sturdy. I mean, some of my spindles seem to have a very delicate hook, and these hooks are very, very sturdy, which again would be great for beginners. So you can see they're made out of a variety of woods. I hope you're enjoying this tour. This one is one of my favorites because it has this little rosette, which is just so sweet. They're really like little works of art. This is made out of a spalted wood. Beautiful spinners. The other thing about these spindles, and some makers will do this as well, is that, let me see if I can show you this. Sometimes they'll put little pin weights, little brass pins in the edge of the spindle so that it makes it more balanced and a better spinner. So these are my Texas Jeans spindles. Here's another maker. These are my Spanish Peacock drop spindles. Mike is a master wood turner, and his specialty are his support spindles, but he also makes a beautiful drop spindle as well. So I have one that's kind of on the small side. You'll see here I have this yarn around the hook. His spindles are characterized by these little pigtail hooks, and they have no notch, which makes them really beautiful to look at. This one's got little bunnies on it. Couldn't resist that one. This one's got a beautiful cutout pattern. This one is made out of some exotic wood. Here's one, I think this one is ebony. Yeah. So these are my Spanish Peacock spindles. So you just go to his website. He used to be on Etsy, but people would get cart jacked when they would have a spindle in their cart, and it got kind of cutthroat buying his spindle. So I think you can pretty much get a hold of him now, which I would suggest you just go to his website there. So what do you notice that's different about this one and this one and this one? That's right, they're square. These are spindlewood spindles. Spindlewood spindles are, he makes round whorls too, but he's famous for these square spindles, and boy do they spin beautifully. This is the largest, heaviest one that I have of his. This is walnut. Yeah, I think this is walnut, and then holly, the ring here. And what's neat about the square spindles is, first of all, they don't roll off your desk or your surface as a round spindle will do, which is kind of handy. And then the other thing that's neat is you don't need a notch, because all you have to do is, I like to make it right, place it right here. And this one is my lightest weight of his. It's koa wood, and I think it's about a ½ ounce. So this is made out of koa wood, and I'm spinning some mulberry silk on this. And I don't know if you can see, but I'm spinning quite fine. And then this one is bird's eye maple, and then this one's, I think this one's tulip wood and ebony. So these are really pretty. And this one's nice and heavy, good for thicker singles and plying. I noticed here this one, he puts the good makers they will add, I think you can see, there you go. They'll add sometimes a brass in there just to make the spin more true, which is pretty nice. This one weighs hardly anything. All right, and then let's go on to the British makers. Ian Tate of the Wood Emporium makes the most beautiful Turkish spindles, but he also makes support spindles and drop spindles. So this is my one Ian Tate spindle. And he puts the fancy wood as a layer on the top, and then the rest of it, I think he uses a more common wood that's to his area. And this spins absolutely like a dream. Everything he touches is just fantastic. So I only have one of his spindles like this. And then the other Turkish spindle maker that I absolutely love is Enid Ashcroft. And Enid also makes drop spindles. And I have two of hers here as examples. This one is, I think she calls this a boardwalk. This one's very center weighted. It doesn't spin a long time, but it spins really, really fast. And it's fun as it spins. It's fun to look at. And then here is another one of her spindles. It's like a pagoda, the shape here. Nice sturdy hook, doesn't bend. I like a sturdy hook in case you do drop it. It won't bend. And this one's made out of yew, which is one of my favorite British woods. They used to make bows, the famous English bows with yew wood. And they get these beautiful spalted or burls in the wood. Hopefully you can see this. So my spindle collection wouldn't be complete without a couple of Enid Ashcroft spindles. It's like a little butterfly. All right, I hope you enjoyed this tour of my spindles, and I hope you have some nice spindles in your collection, and I'll link all of the makers in the description box below. In this part of the video, I'm going to show you how you can get started on your drop spindle. And for this demonstration, I'm using this carded preparation. This is a Corriedale fleece. It's a medium fiber that I carded on my drum carder. In terms of beginner fibers, I would recommend Corriedale, Blueface Leicester, Falkland, Cheviot, Jacob would be good, Shetland would be good. I also recommend a roving over a comb top, but it doesn't matter too much. Roving or a carded preparation has the fibers more jumbled up, whereas a combed preparation has all the fibers aligned. So this is hand combed. This is hand combed top. I'll show you some other. Here is some combed BFL with mohair, which would be very nice. Here is a piece of a carded bat from Inglenook Fibers. That would be very good. Yeah, Corriedale, Cheviot, BFL, or anything that really makes your heart sing that you want to spin. So I'm going to just pull off a piece of my roving here. I'm going to take one of my spindles. And I think I'm going to use my True Creations spindle. This is a 1.2 ounces. All right, so what I do to get started is I take my roving and I catch it on the hook of the spindle. And then I start to rotate. Now I rotate clockwise. I spin clockwise, which is the S direction. And I'm just going to keep twirling, and this is called drafting when you pull it out. You're drafting out. I do this till I get about 12 inches or so, or 18 inches. Then I pinch here, and I walk the fiber back to the hook, and I grab it. Now, if I release the tension here, the yarn is going to fall apart. So I like to keep it under tension. You can see this is already a little twisty here. And then you take your fiber, your yarn, and then you're going to wrap it around the shaft. What's really lovely, excuse me, what's really lovely about his spindles is that they have 4 notches. So they have 1 at 12, 3, 6, and 9. So you have a variety of places where you can put your yarn. I like to put it right here at the bottom. I guess they call that 3 o'clock. And then I hook it on, and now I'm ready to spin. Now, another thing you can do if you're struggling with that, you can just take a long piece of yarn, commercial yarn, and you can just tie it onto your spindle and then use that as your leader. I find that this is quite simple to do, and just saves that little bit of extra time of searching for a piece of yarn. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is talk about park and draft and then continuous spinning. All right, so I've got my leader and I've got my fiber supply. And so this is how you park and draft. So what you do when you park and draft is you're pinching this is where your yarn meets your fiber supply. You want to keep your fiber out of the way. So you want to maybe put it around your wrist or just keep it out of the way. So the way I understand park and draft is that you pinch your yarn here, you twist, you're building up twist in this. You see how kinky it is right in there. You're building up twist in this part of the yarn. Then, so you build up some twist. Now that twist wants to go somewhere. And so where's it going to go? It's going to go into the rest of your yarn. So at this point, what you do is you park it. So some people like to park it between their legs. Some people will park it, in their armpit. like that. Let me see if you can see this. All right, it's got all this twist built up in here. So now I'm going to release, I'm going to draft out. Watch what happens when I release. All that twist went up into that yarn that was just, that basically pre-yarn. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to take this and wrap it around. So let's do it again. So we're going to build up twist, park, and then draft. Sometimes you can get 2 drafts. This is a very slow way of making yarn, but it's a nice way to learn because then you're not worried about dropping your precious spindle. This is one of the reasons I suggest you get an inexpensive spindle to start with, so that if you do drop it, you're not too worried about dropping it. So I'll show you this again. So there's your yarn, here's your fiber supply. You're going to hook. You're going to build twist. This time I'm going to park it between my knees here, like this. Hopefully you can see this. And then where my hand is pinching here, holding the fiber, I'm going to pinch it with my other hand. Now I'm going to draft out and release. Draft out and release. So the twist wants to go somewhere, and it wants to go up into the fiber supply. And then you wind it on. I didn't learn park and draft. I just jumped right into regular continuous spinning with a lot of mistakes. See, so there I was able to draft quite a bit out. There's, it's strong here. Wind it on. And we'll do one more time, and then I'll show you the continuous method. Build up twist. Park it here. Now we're going to draft. 1. You can smooth the yarn. Depending, I've got three drafts out of that 1 spin. And you can test the twist in your yarn by doing a ply back sample. It's a little bit under twisted there. Abby says in her book that it's better to have too much twist instead of too little. So it's just a matter of practice. So you can test your twist by doing a ply back sample and see how you like your yarn. All right, next up is how to spin continuous. All right, so how do you join new fiber? Make sure that you're leaving a little bit of fluff on the end of your yarn here, and then you take your fluff of your fiber supply and you lay the fluff on fluff. Now we're going to put my yarn on the hook, always keeping this kind of out of the way. You're going to go ahead and spin. So rather than park and draft it, you're going to just draft it out now while it's spinning. And I keep an eye on the spindle. As it starts to slow down, I'm going to stop drafting. And then if you go up and down like this, you can get it on your shaft a little bit faster. All right. It really is just practice. All of a sudden it'll click. It's just like riding a bicycle. All of a sudden you knew how to ride a bicycle. Now, ergonomics here. Let's talk about ergonomics. So you see what I'm doing is I'm constantly lifting up my arm, which can actually give you some shoulder pain. So rather than lift your arm, you can only draft with, how far is comfortable, like here, and then do a figure 8, butterfly it, and then from there put it back on the spindle. You can also spin sitting down. Again, you don't have to go all the way up here. You can stop here and then grab your yarn and put it on your spindle. All right, so after you practice that for a while, you want to start thinking about how you can get this to spin faster and longer. And so that's what we'll talk about in the next part of the video, the good old thigh roll. All right, so far all we've been doing is twisting with our hand and drafting. The faster the spin, the faster you have to draft. That's again why beginners are often recommended a heavier spindle, which spins a little slower, so it just gives you more time to get everything coordinated. All right, this is my favorite way to get my spindle in motion. So what I do is I take my spindle and I roll it on my thigh clockwise. This gives you a much, much longer spin. See, it's still spinning, and I've decided I've had enough twist in my yarn, and so I just stop the spindle and then wind on. Again, I just go up and down, just different ways to build your, this is called the cop, and there's different ways to build the cop. You can make it center weighted like a football, or you can make it like a beehive. It just depends on how, what your preference is. So I'm doing this while I'm sitting. So again, I'm going to roll and then draft. And what's nice here is you can then stand up. Still spinning. Once I run out of arm, I just stop the spindle and wind it on like so. It does take practice, but I guess all of a sudden it will click. Here's my ply back sample. It's a nice loosely plied. This is a very strong fiber. It's about the 4-inch staple, so it's going to hang together quite well. Now, if you are holding the fiber supply in this hand and you want to do the thigh roll, right? What you're going to have to do this time, if you're holding your spindle in your right hand and you want to spin your singles in the clockwise or S direction, no, I always say that wrong. Z is clockwise, okay? This time I'm going to have to roll it this way. Now I don't draft this way. That's why I'm much slower doing it this way. So in this part of the video, I wanted to talk about different types of fiber preparation. So there's lots of different ways that you can purchase your fiber. For spindle spinning, it's often nice to have a smaller package of fiber. This is from Hilltop Cloud. It's called a Bach pack, and it's just a 720-gram bundles of fiber. So it's really perfect for spindle spinning. I'm also a big proponent of farm roving. This is some fin sheep wool that I purchased from Walnut Springs Farm, and I tend to find that farm roving or farm products like this are very open and lofty and very easy, especially for beginners. Whereas when you buy a hand-dyed comb top, sometimes the fibers can be a little bit compacted. and you'll have to open up the fibers or even do what they call pre-drafting in order to make it easier to spin. So pre-drafting basically means you take a strip of your fiber and then you kind of attenuate it out, opening up the fibers a little bit and making it easier to spin. This is nice to do when you have a commercially dyed top, or if it's the fiber's been sitting around in your stash for a long time and got a little compacted. And that's called pre-drafting. This is a BFL top, comb top I bought this from Village Spinning and Weaving. And this is comb top. This is a very nice beginner fiber. Another one of my favorites for beginners is Cheviot. This is Cheviot. This is carded preparation. That's also nice to spin. Now, if you're not into the white, you just need craving some color, you can buy prepared, dyed fibers. This is a blend of Corriedale and some sparkle. So pick a fiber that really speaks to you, that you're going to enjoy spending some time with when you're learning, because it's going to make the whole experience a lot more fun. So this has got a little sparkle, and then here is a small skein that I made from that fiber, all spindle spun. But I strongly encourage you, if you really think you're going to enjoy spinning, I encourage you to prepare your own fiber. This is some drum carded Corriedale, and you can see how open and lofty this is, and this is just going to be so easy to spin. So this spindle is so light. It spins very fast and a long time, and I'm spinning thin. So Now if I tried to spin a thick yarn on a very thin spindle or lightweight spindle, what would happen is the spindle would start to back twist, because a thicker yarn doesn't hold as much twist as a thinner yarn. And so that twist wants to go somewhere, and so that's why you would get a backspin. This is combed BFL, commercially prepared top. And as you saw at the beginning here, I had to do quite a bit of fiber prep before I started spinning. So here it is. It's pretty compacted. It's pretty dense. And so I had to take it and really fluff it out, and then take a piece off. And you can do whatever. There's a whole nother video about color management, but see, I'm opening it up, fluffing it out, and then sometimes pre-drafting. You pre-draft it just a little bit, not a lot, but just enough to get it nice and open and ready to spin. So now I have my piece of fluff all ready to go. Always leaving some fluff on the end of your yarn here so that it has something to grab onto. I just pinch it here, give it a little bit of a twist. Now make sure this doesn't go into the, and twist just wants to go somewhere, and it's going to go right into your fiber. Again, keeping that out of your way there. All right, so what if you have a slub, a thick spot that didn't get spun? What I like to do is build up a little twist like you would if you were going to park and draft, and then working your way over to the slub. So there's my thick spot right here. So what I'm going to do is take my left hand, untwist, open the twist going towards my body, and this one this way, the other direction, and then I pull apart here, and you can see that slub is starting to stretch out. And now I'm going to let that twist that I built up in there, and now no more slub, and wind it back on. So that's your worsted draw. With a worsted draw, you always keep the twist out of the fiber supply. So I'm controlling the twist with my hand here. So when I give it a twirl, I take this hand, hold it where the twist, this finger was, and then I start to draft out, and you can smooth it. Smoothing it is more of a true worsted. When you pull back and smooth, pinch back, smooth, pinch back, smooth. It takes out all the air out of your fiber, and your yarn is going to be very dense and very drapey. If you want to leave some of the air in your yarn, again, I'm pinching here, giving it a twist, switching places, and now I'm just going to let that twist go up into my fiber, but I'm not smoothing it, so it's going to be a little bit more lofty. So you get a semi-worsted. All right, now I'm going to show you how to do the long draw with a spindle. For the long draw with a spindle, you want to have a carded preparation. I avoid comb top. You can do long draw with a spindle with comb top, but you would have to probably do it over the fold, which is another video. Okay, so I'm just going to take a small piece of my Cordale roving, nice and open and lofty. So here we go with the long draw. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the twist kind of dance over this hand here, moving up into the fiber supply. You get quite a long draw this way very quickly. Now one thing you can do is just take your elbow and grab the fiber like this. So it's just like long draw on a wheel. So you're drafting out sideways like this. So you're going to get a lot of air in your yarn. It takes a lot of practice. But it makes yarn really, really fast. Do it one more time. Okay. So I'm just kind of doing a dance here with my fiber. I got a little slub there, take that off. And there we go. What I like about spindle spinning is it gets you off your tush and standing if you want. Again, I'm just doing a long draw here. Sometimes I go back and pinch here to control the twist. I do kind of, this hand is very, kind of goes everywhere, up and down, letting that twist into the wool. And there you have your, quite a long bit. You can see I'm building up my cap pretty fast here. So when do you stop? You know, how much fiber do you have on your spindle before you think you're done? Well, I find that you really can't build a cap much wider than the whorl is. So once the yarn starts filling up and getting to the edges of your whorl, I'm pretty much done. Also, if your spindle starts to really slow down and wobble quite a bit, it's going to impact your ability to spin. So it's really just personal preference. Again, if you're worried, just do it over a carpet. Don't do it over cement. You know, because you'll be sorry if you drop your spindle and you break it. See, it's still spinning. And then I've got my yarn. All right, in the next part of the video, I'm going to show you how to ply. I have my two cops here. Now, I would probably put more yarn on here, but I'm just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to show you how I make my plying ball. So what I usually do is take the two ends of my yarn. Okay, so I've got my two threads here. Now you can start it. You can wrap it around like a coin or a little rock or something. I don't do that. All I do is I do a couple of figure eights here, and then I just let the spindles rest on a surface or on the carpeted floor. All right, so I've got my figure eights. All right. Now I start wrapping it around the middle. So you see how it's like a bow? Let's move this over. See how it's like a bow? And I continue to do that. I wrap it around just as many times as I feel like it. And then once I get a little bit of a buildup here, and then I fold over the two ends of my little bow, and I very tightly, normally when you wind a ball of yarn for knitting, you don't do it tightly, you do it very loosely, but for plying you want to make sure you do it really nice and tight. And then I just fold over again and continue to wind, and then I just usually let my spindles gently rest on a sofa or the floor, just or over the bed. You can put them on the bed, and I just keep, you can do this while you're watching TV, and then every once in a while I rotate again, but you want to be tight. You want these two plies to have the same tension. I didn't realize this matches my shirt. Now there are other ways that you can ply. You can fashion a lazy Kate to hold your two spindles. Again, if you want more details on spindle spinning, you can check out Respect the Spindle. Also, Maggie Casey has a book, Starting Spinning, where she has this section there on spindling. So, you know, you could certainly, some people put these on like a shoebox with holes in it, and then they ply right off of the spindles. I think Spanish Peacock has a device that you could use to ply. So I would encourage you just to do your own research. This is just what works for me. And so yeah, so I could just keep doing that and until I have my ball all ready to ply. So, you know, typically it just ends up looking like this. All right, so next up I'll show you how to ply. All right, so let's talk about plying. So I've made my plying ball, and I have my spindle, my little bit heavier and a little bit longer shaft spindle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my end, and I like to make a slip knot, just like you do when you're casting on in knitting or crochet, or you could just make a regular knot, and I fasten it to my spindle. So I just tie it on. All right, so I've got it tied on. And now, what you do when you ply is you want to spin the spindle in the opposite direction as your singles. So I did my singles Z twist, which is clockwise. So when I ply, I'm going to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to spin my spindle this way. I've got a little bit of yarn built up there. And again, this is my True Creation spindle. So I've got my yarn, spin this way. And you can see what's happening is you're getting your 2-ply. So there's my 2-ply. And again, now with this, you can't count treadles or anything like you do when you're doing on a wheel. So I just give it a good turn, and then I just look at my yarn. Like right now I'm looking at my yarn and I don't feel like it has enough ply twist. It just doesn't look pleasing to me. So what I do is I give it another twirl to build up a little bit more plying twist in there. And now you look at your yarn to see what it looks like. Some people like a really tight ply. Other people like a loose ply. It's just personal preference. Don't be alarmed if it does this. Especially if your singles have been resting a long time, you expect this to be a little twisty when you do your plying. That's completely normal. And again, I'm holding the twist here. I've got the ball in my hand. I'm trying not all that plying twist to go up into the fiber. And then after a while, you get into a rhythm, and you know you spin and you let out the same amount of fiber from your plying ball, and you might just have a look-see what it looks like. I'm happy with the ply twist, and now I'm going to wind it on my spindle. And again, just try to be consistent. So, you know, leave about the same amount here, give it a twirl. See what I'm doing is I'm just releasing, you know, 3 lengths of fiber. Now my spindle's still spinning, but I'm going to stop. It's quite a bit of twist in there. So spindling is more, you know, it's more of an intuitive thing. It's more of the feel. There's the technical aspect of it is not as strong as with wheel spinning, you know, with ratios and twist per inch and so on. It's just more, you know, what it looks like. You know what your yarn, what you like to spin with. So I'm giving it a twirl with my hand, again, counterclockwise, letting it build up there. Sometimes I give it a little more if I don't feel like there's enough twist. And if you do the same movement every time, you're going to get the same amount of ply twist throughout your yarn. All right, I'm going to show you how I do this standing up, and that'll be the conclusion of this video. So just like before, I'm going to give it a thigh roll, but I'm not going to go clockwise. I'm going to go anti-clockwise. So I'm going to go this way. And then I just release some of the yarn. And again, I'm going to look at it. It looks good. And wind it on. You can see my yarn is being stored on the shaft of the spindle. This is why you like a nice longer shaft, because typically when you ply, your yarn's it's a lot thicker than the single, so you're going to need a little bit more room to store the yarn. So 1, 2, 3. So after I get into a rhythm, I'm always doing the same thing. Letting out the same amount, watching the spin. And it goes quite fast. Of course, if you have a wheel, you can go ahead and do your plying on your wheel. This is a wicked spin. I mean, it just spins forever. True Creations. Phenomenal, phenomenal spindles. So just do whatever is comfortable for you. And then once I get all the yarn plied, then I'm going to put it on the Niddy Noddy and tie it off, give it a wash, and you end up with a pretty skein like this. So I had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you found it useful. I welcome your questions and comments below the description box. I will link all my resources down there. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.